My name's Donald Godfrey. I'm from Ireland. I spent a lot of my later adulthood in Cork, where I went to UCC. My mother's from Antrim, my father's people from Limerick, and I grew up in England and in Ireland in different stages of my youth. And I'm here at the University of San Francisco, where I'm the university chaplain, and I also help out in a local parish here. When I was around 21, I was at UCC. It dawned on me that I was gay, and I didn't know what to do with that at the time. My journey has been integrating who I am, my different identities, which include being Irish, include being a Roman Catholic, and now a Roman Catholic priest, and somebody who happens to be gay. Well, my first year in theology, I was living in Ballymun in one of the high-rise flats, and it was a very rich year, but I do remember I asked if I could go and study theology abroad. I'd already begun in Ireland, and I remember one of the Jesuits came back and said, "Oh, Donald, I heard that you're going to be sent to this community, and it's right in the middle of the gay neighborhood in Toronto." And somebody at the table said, "Oh, I wouldn't like to go there." And somebody else said, "What's your problem? Are you homophobic?" I didn't say anything, but I'm thinking, oh, there is a God after all, and this is where I'm meant to be. In 1990, I came to San Francisco just for the summer as a field placement, working with homeless people living with AIDS. I ended up marching in the Gay Pride Parade the first week I was here. That was an amazing experience. And that week, I also went to Mass at Most Holy Redeemer Parish in the Castro, the gay neighborhood. And I found myself crying from the moment I walked in. I think I was in shorts and t-shirt. I wasn't ordained a deacon at the time, but I found myself crying because I realized this is the place where I can be myself. I don't have to hide any part of those two identities that are so important to me, being Catholic and being gay. And I can integrate and heal and be empowered here. We have to reimagine our whole understanding of gender identity, sexual orientation. We, within the church, need to have a revolution in how we approach it, and that's going to take some time to do that on a theoretical level. But on a pastoral level, we can become a different community and are becoming a different community. And I would say to an LGBT person who is struggling with this, I would say if they're still interested in the church in some way, to find somebody or a community where they are able to do this integration, that they can find such places. The rainbow, of course, has a special significance for the LGBTQ community, but it's much more than that. It's also a sign of God's covenant with Mother Earth, with our common home, with all the environmental issues. So I wore it one day when that was the reading, and I was so many people wanted their photograph taken with me afterward. This is not so long ago. People were waiting to have that picture taken with me outside on the steps. The thing that I think is so important is that people who grow up LGBTQ shouldn't have to choose between their identities. They should be able to embrace being Catholic and being LGBTQ.
My name is Claire Farrell. I was born in Dublin, so I'm from Dublin, and I've lived all my life in Dublin. I'm a trans woman. I knew when I was 6 or 7 years of age, maybe, that I was different. I didn't know how different, I didn't understand, other than I had a propensity to wear female clothes and behave like a girl, really. The Bowman Society was a useful outlet. It was founded, would you believe, or co-founded by an Irish person, a woman from Dublin known as Alga Campbell. And I frequently went to London with Alga Campbell. Sadly, she's no longer with us, but she did a great job in setting up the Bowman Society, and the Bowman Society is so important to the trans community. The Bowman Society every year held a ball. A crowd of us would go, when I say a crowd of us, I'm talking about 5 or 6 or 7. People would go over from Dublin to the Bowman Society annual ball. And there were great occasions because it was a marvelous time for us Irish trans, because there was nothing here, absolutely nothing. It was like freedom when we would go over there, because we could be ourselves. We could obviously dress for an entire weekend as women, and and be women for the weekend. And that was just incredible. And we would come back, obviously on a high, but we'd always be concerned, what are we going to do from now on? Is immigration common in the Irish trans community? Absolutely. I think that's one of the reasons why Irish trans people, you didn't see them for so long. In a way, it took somebody like me, who was based here, who was never going to emigrate, to develop something. But yeah, in general, a person who realized they were trans or different also realized that there was no place really for them in this country. I think Ireland has changed to such a degree since the noughties, really, that it's almost unrecognizable from the country that I grew up in. And I'm proud of that. I'm proud of how the LGBT community are held by everybody. There's a lot more work to be done right across the board, not only in the trans community, and there's a lot of work to be done in relation to hate crime and all of that. But we're going well as a country. I think we're a caring country now.
My name's Terry Stewart, and I am originally from Belfast in the north of Ireland, and I've lived in London since 1975. One of the major reasons I left Ireland was because it was really to give my parents a break, to allow them the opportunity to be able to live their lives as best they could. And it was about my sexuality. They couldn't deal with it. My parents loved me. They didn't drive me out of Ireland. It was the community, and it was the political organisations that saw homosexuality as a stigma. Not only were you the enemy, as it were, in terms of the British Army, but you were also the enemy in terms of your own community. When I first came to London, I was living in a house of Irish people. I was living in South London, and I ventured into a gay bar one night, and I met two people that I knew from Ireland. And one said, Colin Clifford it was actually, Colin said, "Oh, what are you doing in a gay pub?" And I said, I didn't know it was a gay pub. They serve wonderful Guinness in here. This button here, it's an Irish, Saoirse and Homogeneisa. That was the first, one of the first, if not the first, gay badge that I ever wore. And it was made in Dublin about 1973 or 74. When I came to England, there was many other badges. Yes, I'm homosexual too, glad to be gay. But I never ever saw another Irish one. Railton Road was a road which was known as the front line. And on that front line, there was a number of squats, and one of them was a gay centre. And the gay centre was a place which was specifically for gay and lesbian people. And we used it to develop our ideas, our politics, who we were, our consciousness, our identity. Loads of Irish people lived there. And it was a community from all over the country, really, not just Ireland, but also all parts of Britain. People came to live there as gay people. In terms of the input of the Irish community to Railton Road, we had a theatre group called Brixton Fairies. And Brixton Fairies was a way of us expressing our lives through theatre. Initially, we started playing on the street. It was like street theatre, it was agitprop. And then we'd be attacked. The audience would effectively attack us. And then we just had this whole period where all this art and creativity was just obliterated in terms of the impact that HIV and AIDS had. So we didn't just lose friends, we lost the whole movement. We then were able to begin to mobilise around how we could combat this disease. But everybody was involved. No matter what you were doing, you were involved. It was hard not to be involved. The beautiful thing about Railton Road was the likes of myself, Colin Clifford, Jim Ennis, Michael Dwyer, Micheál Kerrigan, all those people were able to develop as individuals and as a community. Knowing the inside humour and the jokes that we shared, and also the tears and the pain, because you can't have one without the other, and they were lovely to be with, both for being gay and also for being Irish.
My name is Loretta Cosgrove. I'm currently in Sydney, Australia. I'm from Clombur, County Galway. I was born in 1976. I'd like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land on which I live and work, the Gadigal people of the Eora Nation, and acknowledge their elders past, present and emerging. In 1994 I finished high school. I spent most of my teenage years on the central coast of New South Wales. It's about an hour and a half north of Sydney. I grew up in this small town called Terrigal, right on the beach. It was very white, very middle class. As soon as I turned 18, I wanted out. I wanted to return to Ireland, and I moved back in with my grandmother and my uncle in Clombur, and I enrolled in college in Galway. And this was probably the start of my real story of coming out. And many Irish people, they go to London or New York or Australia to come out. I actually went back to Galway and I came out at home. And once I came out to my family, I could start living my life in Sydney. And that was, you know, I will be forever grateful to all those people I met in Galway and for helping me to come out. Back in the 90s, I first saw a mock in Mardi Gras, and I saw this group of Irish friends marching to, I think it was the U2 song Beautiful Day, but they had appropriated the lyrics to I'm a Beautiful Gay. And they had this presence at Mardi Gras. They were a really small group. They had this incredible green banner that said Sydney Queer Irish, or it just said Queer Irish on it, actually. And I saw those guys and I was like, wow, there is Queer Irish in Sydney. You know, maybe they were my first role models. Sydney Queer Irish was formed in 2010, and that was our first committee meeting. We debated about the name, and we came up with Sydney Queer Irish, and that's been shortened to SQI, and that's stuck with us. What wowed the crowds in 2015 was, you know, this group of really passionate people that came together, and you know, we were led by a group of original Sydney Queer Irish, and then we had these, you know, 8 lesbian leprechauns who were running all over the place. Panty Bliss was put on top of a rainbow, and you know, we had U2's song Pride in the Name of Love blaring. It was incredible. It was just like we were opening ourselves up. When we looked at doing events in Sydney, a couple of years ago we held our first annual Paddy's Gay event, which was this sold out big massive night. But I purposely spoke to all the Indigenous drag queens in Sydney. So I pitched this idea to Josie Baker, and I was like, right, I'm going to come out as St. Patrick. We're going to talk about the folklore of St. Patrick bringing all the snakes out of Ireland. So I'm going to take it that one step further and present all of those snakes to the Indigenous people of Australia and the original custodians, and for safekeeping. Josie was like, I don't really get it. I'm like, it's all right. You don't really have to get it. The Irish people are going to get it. And he goes, and I don't like snakes. I said, look, it's okay. We're not going to be using real snakes on the night. So, you know, we purposely aligned with the Indigenous drag queens here, and I think they really got a chance too to, you know, they've remained friends, and you know, at most of our nights there'll be quite a few Indigenous drag queens, and Josie's since come on to choreograph the last couple of Mardi Gras floats for us. The achievements I think I'm most proud of with SQI are our involvement with the greater Irish community here in Sydney. We're truly accepted, I believe, and that's our work with the consulate. And you know, we're more than a social group that has a Mardi Gras float. Our involvement with both the campaigns in Ireland and in Australia, that's something I'm extremely proud of. And one of the most proudest things, I think, was actually SQI marching in Sydney St. Patrick's Day. That was the last big Sydney St. Patrick's Day parade in Sydney. 20 people showed up to march on St. Patrick's Day. We weren't surrounded by our queer community and those supporters. We were actually putting ourselves out in a parade that had, marching bands, GAA clubs, county organisations. And we were bringing that rainbow float and a couple of lesbian leprechauns and, a couple of winged people down George Street. And we won Best Float in the Sydney St. Patrick's Day in 2015. And I think, that for me was a very proud moment, because that was another coming out as such. That was SQI's coming out to Sydney and to the Irish community here. And that was cementing our place in the community here.